This week, we read a double Parsha. There's two Parshas that we read this week, Tazria and Metzora. And they come after what we read last week. At the end of last week's Torah portion, Shemini, we read about the laws of which animals are kosher and which animals are not kosher. And obviously, these are animals that we eat, and we eat them with our mouths. So I want to talk about our mouths and the three main functions of our mouth. So the three main functions of our mouth are to eat, to kiss, and to speak. And they're all ways in which we connect. So when we eat, so hopefully we eat kosher foods, and they're prepared in the correct ways, etc., that we bring more holiness. We connect ourselves more to holiness, to godliness in the world. That's the idea of eating kosher foods, is that it opens up ourselves to more holiness. When we kiss, hopefully we kiss the right people, our partners, selective people that we kiss. And it's a way of communicating and connecting with another person. And we speak. What we speak are an expression of our thoughts, of our ideas, and they are us connecting our spiritual realms with people around us. We get to communicate, and we're the only beings that get to speak. We're a speaking being, like Adam in the Garden of Eden was the first being to speak. So our mouths are a way to understand the mouth of God. And obviously God is not a being, it doesn't have a mouth, but God also functions in the world as our mouths function, meaning that God kisses us. How? Through it says on Har Moriah in Jerusalem, there is a kissing of heaven and earth. That's where there's a connection of godliness, a greater connection of godliness of God to the world is on Har Moriah, right in the center of Jerusalem where the Holy Temple stood. That's where heaven and earth kiss. In the temple, we would bring our offerings, we bring our animals, we bring all of our offerings, we would bring them, and God would, so to speak, eat them. There would be an eating such that it connected spirituality with physicality. So too, when we eat food, we connect our souls with our bodies. If we stop eating, obviously, after a period of time, we die. We lose the connection of our soul with our body. So too, when we stop praying, we stop learning Torah, we stop reaching and yearning out to God, we'll lose that connection that God has with this world. So that's another way of understanding the mouth. But finally, I want to stop and think about what it means when God spoke. God spoke the world into existence. When we read in Genesis about God creating the world, it was through God speaking. Let there be light. At the very beginning, God speaks the world into existence, meaning that the speech of God created the physical and spiritual world. And so too, we have that power to create with our words, and we have the power, the choice, to destroy and to disparage and to discourage and to diminish with our words. This week's Torah portions speaks about things that block us from godliness and things that open us up to godliness. And the terms that are used in the Torah are tameh, which is something that blocks us, and tahor, which is something that is open and transparent and brings godliness into the world. When we speak slanderously, when we gossip, we block godliness into the world and we become tameh. And in the times of the temple, a person who would slander, would gossip, would speak ill of people, would develop a physical manifestation on their homes or on their garments or on their bodies. They would have what was called there are many different words for the afflictions that they would get. One of them is called a nega. It would be like a white skin condition that they would develop. It wasn't contagious. You didn't go to the doctor to have it diagnosed and to treat it. You would go to the priest who would diagnose it, because the priest is somebody who represents love and connection and brotherhood. And if this was a nega, if this was brought about by speaking ill of other people, then the priest would declare that, and you would be sent away to sit outside the community. You no longer merited to live within the community. Your words have undone on some level the social fabric of the society you live in, and you don't merit to live there anymore. And so there was an immediate response when the Kohen declared that this was a nega, this was something that you are afflicted with because of something spiritual that you needed to fix. It's almost like God saying, you need to fix this. You're undoing the social fabric. Go outside of the community and sit alone. You had to be 100% alone. You couldn't take your partner with you. You couldn't take your books with you. You couldn't take your computer with you, right? You had to sit and you had to introspect and you had to fix that which brought you to speaking ill of other people. There's a fantastic story, perhaps you've heard it, about this man who likes to tell stories, and he loves to tell stories about other people, and he gets a lot of attention and people laugh when he tells stories about other people. So one time he tells a story about a salesman, and it's a bit of a negative story, and people listen to the story and they laugh about this person, and they tell somebody else, and somebody else tells somebody else, and before too long the whole city or the whole town knows about this salesman. The salesman comes to town and nobody wants to offer him hospitality. Nobody wants to do business with him. Nobody wants anything to do with him. And he doesn't understand what happened. Goes to the rabbi and he says, "Right, I don't understand what's happening in your village, in your town, in your city, like what's going on?" And the rabbi goes to this man who he imagines, perhaps because he likes to tell stories, maybe he has an idea of what went on. And the man said, yes, he did speak about this person, but he had no idea that it would, and it's all true, et cetera, et cetera. And because of the gossip, because of the slander, this man had begun, that this man was now ruined. His business was ruined, his reputation was ruined. And the rabbi says, could you go home and bring me a feather pillow? So the man goes home, brings him a feather pillow, and the rabbi cuts open the pillow, opens up the window, and all the feathers go out into the room, and they're fluttering in the room, and they're swirling in the wind, and they go out the window, and they're in the bushes, and they get carried by the wind, and they're all over. 10 minutes later, the rabbi turns to the man, and he says, go and collect all those feathers and put them back in the pillowcase. And the man says, that's impossible. I can't do that. Maybe the ones inside the room I can get, but the ones that went outside the window and got carried by the wind, I can't get those back. And the rabbi says, that's exactly what our words are like. Our words, once they come out of our mouths, we don't know where they go. We don't know what happens to them. And on some level, when we understand in the Torah where somebody who did that got an affliction on their skin and they knew they had something to rectify. They knew there was something that they could do to fix what they had done. We don't have such overt signs to help us understand what we might be doing in the world. And if we did, we'd probably all run to try to fix those things. But in the times of the sanctuary, in the times of the temple, people received these afflictions to help them work on themselves, to help them fix themselves. It's predicated, Lashon Hara, speaking badly of other people, destroying with our words, is predicated or the underpinning is arrogance and haughtiness. And by excluding the person from the community, having them sit alone, they have to go inside, and they have to, on some level, it's almost like they've died. They've left the community. They have these marks on their skin. They're afflicted, and it's a little bit like a wake-up call. So hopefully they work on themselves, and they do teshuvah. They repent what they've done wrong, and they want to learn how to be better, and they want to come back, and they come back into the community. Now they merit to be back into the community. They were sent into quarantine. They were sent into isolation to reflect and to work on themselves and to get to the place where they now merit to come back. So if we think about these uses of our mouths, as I mentioned, three major functions of our mouth are eating. So we should eat the right foods. We should kiss the right people, be intimate with the right people, and we should speak constructively, productively, inspiringly, empathetically, encouragingly, with speech that lifts up, that raises people up, that helps growth that brings Torah wisdom into the world, that all of these things bring godliness into the world. We're speaking, we're the only being that speaks, and if we use our speech correctly, we become people who are agents of godliness in the world, and that is tahor. The opposite to discourage, to disparage, to destroy, to create envy in other people, that's a blockage, and that's a tame. And the person who was afflicted with these skin afflictions because of their arrogance, because of their evil speech, was sent outside of the community until they fixed themselves and then were able to come back. One final point. When they were declared by the Kohen, by the priest, that they had this affliction, they had this nega, they would then declare that they were tame. They would have to declare they were tame. And you could say that's very embarrassing for a person to have to say that, which it probably, maybe it is and it isn't. But one of the things that it did do is it encouraged other people to pray for that person. And so often we hide things that perhaps if we shared them, then other people would pray for them. And the only thing that comes to my mind is when one of my children was in the Israeli army and he was doing different missions and so on. He says, "Mommy, I don't want to tell you what I'm doing." And I said, "But if you don't tell me, then I can't pray for you." So, okay, I'll deal with it and I'll be fearful for your safety, etc. But it gives me the opportunity to pray for you. If we don't know people are sick, especially mental health issues that people hide, if we know about them, then it can encourage us and help us to help that person. And one of the ways is to pray for the person. And by praying, we're bringing godliness into the world. So my blessing to all of us in this quick 10 minutes of this huge topic of what it means to be tameh and how to fix the tameh and what the different afflictions were that the people receive for different spiritual malaises that they had. So the physical affliction was the manifestation physically of something spiritual that they had to work on. That it's about how we use our mouths. Are we using them correctly? Are we speaking positively? Are we creating with our words? And my prayer is that we do, and that we work on ourselves and we lift everybody's boat up higher.